Who's with me this morning? Martin and Katie Luther. I've also got my mom watching on a tablet over here to my right. And she can remember that there was a time when on Saturdays you could go to the movies and see short adventures. Maybe somebody like Roy Rogers, who would get himself into trouble, maybe find himself hanging by a branch over the side of a cliff. By the way, that's where we get the term cliffhanger. And then the movie would suddenly stop, and the screen would say, "To be continued." I would imagine being very frustrated. I know even now when I watch a television show and suddenly we get to the end and I discover that it's the first of a two-part episode, I'm frustrated because I want to know what comes after that. This week's Bible lesson is a little like that. In last week's lesson, in case you missed it, Jesus tries to comfort his disciples. He tells them that he's going on ahead of them to prepare a place for them. And then he will come back and take us so that we can be with him in heaven forever. Today he talks about how once he leaves this earth, he's going to send another spirit. Now the Greek word here is paraclete, which means advocate, helper, or teacher. Martin, you know that because you translated the Bible from Greek into German for your people. Jesus said, "If you love me, you will do as I command." And what was it he asked us to do? He asked us to love other people as we have been loved. A favorite author of mine is a man named Robert Fulghum. And he talked about how he once traveled to Greece to attend a seminar. The teacher asked if people had any questions. And Fulghum, who's a bit of a jokester, which is maybe one of the reasons why I like him, asked the question, "What is the meaning of life?" The class chuckled, but it turned out that the professor took him seriously. And he reached into his pocket and he took out a small round mirror about the size of a quarter. And he explained, "When I was a small child during World War II, one day on the road, I found broken pieces of a mirror. A German motorcycle had been wrecked in that place. I tried to find all the pieces of the mirror so that I could put it back together again, but I could not. So I kept the largest piece. It's the one that I hold in my hand. And by scratching it on a stone, over time, I turned it into a round disc. I began to play with it as a toy, and I realized that if I angled it just right, I could reflect the light of the sun into a dark space and make that space light. And as the mirror stayed in my pocket during the years that I grew, I realized that it had a deeper meaning." Now, Martin, I'm told that in your writings you once said that we might be the only sermon that people would ever hear. Well, we're not fragments of mirrors, but we can reflect the light of God into the lives of people who are in darkness. I watch the news and I realize that there are lots of people who are frightened and afraid and worried about what the future brings. Restrictions have been relaxed, allowing people to go back out into the cities. But the concern is there that this might trigger another round of the pandemic. Justifiably, people are concerned. Some are afraid. Some are anxious. Now, I'll admit that I'm concerned. I don't want more of a pandemic to take place, but I'm not anxious and I'm not afraid. Because, my friend Luthers, I can be the sermon that people hear as I share with them my trust in the God who loves me and who cares for me. Papa, as the Holy Spirit leads us day by day, help us to follow and obey. Amen.